They want to have control. Don't do anything foolish. In a few weeks, all this will seem like nothing. By Sunday, Leonid was suffering with the same shortness of breath which had afflicted his friend. In the early hours of Monday morning, he woke up covered in sweat and coughing wretchedly. His wife, alarmed by these symptoms, mixed honey into a glass of tea and encouraged Leonid to drink. It did no good. By dawn, small black swellings had appeared on his neck and shoulders, quickly spreading to the top of his chest. The swellings became ulcerous as the day went on. Less than a mile away, in a nearby apartment complex, Alexei Nikolaev's symptoms had also worsened. Vera telephoned for help, but doctors were not available. Dozens of employees at the ceramics factory who had left work at the same time were experiencing similar illnesses. Unbeknown to their families, all of them were suffering from acute pulmonary anthrax poisoning. By the end of the week, they would all be dead. As many as 1,000 residents lost their lives as a result of the leak from Compound 19. As a closed city, specific authorization was already required to enter Sverdlovsk. Any citizen wishing to leave needed a permit to do so. Vera Nikolaeva knew that phone calls were tapped and that news from Sverdlovsk rarely reached the outside world. In the awful days following the loss of her husband, she heard that local hospitals had been overwhelmed by men and women with identical symptoms to Alexei. 2 doctors visited her apartment and explained what had happened. "Your husband's death was caused by a consignment of contaminated meat sold on the black market," the older of them told her. He wore a white coat and had a stethoscope around his neck. "Along with many others, he ate the meat and, as a consequence, was fatally poisoned." "But I have never bought such food," Vera replied. "This is why I don't trust the black market." "Unfortunately, the meat was served in the canteen at his factory," the other doctor explained. "The authorities are trying as hard as they can to track down the offending vendors. Rest assured they will be caught and prosecuted to the full extent of the law." The doctors expressed their condolences, handed Vera Alexei's death certificate, and left hurriedly, without touching the tea she had prepared for them. They were busy and needed to visit a number of bereaved families in the area. 2 days later, it was announced on the wireless that several traders in Sverdlovsk had been imprisoned on charges of selling contaminated beef. Officials had also rounded up a number of stray dogs and destroyed them on the grounds that they presented a danger to public health. Flyers were distributed around the city, ordering citizens to stop buying food on the black market. Anybody who dared to question the official line was intimidated into silence. In time, fear and suspicion ensured that the disaster was rarely spoken of, even by those who had lost husbands, wives, and, in some cases, children. It was only many years later, long after the collapse of the Soviet Union, that Vera Nikolaeva, now remarried and living in Germany, learned the truth about what had happened to her husband. When news of the leak from Compound 19 had reached Moscow, a team of KGB officers had been dispatched to Sverdlovsk. The development of weaponized anthrax constituted a breach of the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention. In typical Soviet fashion, the officers had set about covering everything up. In this task, they were assisted by officials from the local Communist Party, including none other than Boris Yeltsin, the future president of the Russian Federation. Under no circumstances could the outside world learn about the activities of Biopreparat, the Soviet Union's secret biological weapons program. The 2 men in the pristine white coats who had come to Vera's apartment were not doctors. They were KGB. The death certificate they had given her was a fake. Her late husband's medical records had been destroyed in 1979. Alexei Nikolaev had been just one of many of the victims of what became known as the biological Chernobyl. The present day. 1. "Gone fishing," said the handwritten note attached to the refrigerator in Saul Cacheta's sunlit Connecticut kitchen, sparrows chirping in the trees beyond the conservatory, fresh flowers.